Welcome everyone to the closing keynote of Open Repositories 2017. Hasn't it been a great conference? Yes. Amazing. Before we get started with the keynote, we'd just like to yet again thank our gold sponsor, Admire, for their support of the conference.
Today, scientists at your institution are working to solve the challenging issues that impact our world. For cancer, in the US alone, there will be an estimated 1.6 million new diagnoses and 600,000 associated deaths this year. In Central Africa, at this very moment, the lives of more than 20 million people are being threatened by the consequences of climate change. To solve these problems, scientists need to build on existing research. Even today, open public access to research is still limited. This hampers progress that has a direct impact on improving people's lives. To make real progress, scientists need our help. When scientists can more easily access one another's research, they can discover new solutions more quickly, bring us all one step closer to changing the lives of millions. How can we contribute together? At Admire, we strongly believe new research should be as openly shared as possible. By providing the platforms to make scientific research publicly available, Admire aids in removing barriers to scientific progress, accelerating science. Together, we can bring broad and open access to your institution's discoveries through the use of institutional repositories. More than 200 institutions in over 40 countries have leveraged Admire, serving thousands of article downloads every day. Join them in changing people's lives. Set your science free.
Let us now welcome our speaker for the closing keynote, Dr. Xiaolin Zhang. He's the former director of the National Science Library and the Chinese Academy of Science. He has a physics background, but his research interests cover digital libraries, knowledge organization, data-driven knowledge discovery, and open access. He has been very active in promoting open access in China, playing a major role in designing open access policies of the Chinese Academy of Science and National Science Foundation of China. He has initiated the development of the Institutional Repository Grid, the China Open Access Weeks, and the China IR Conference. He's now the leader of the China IR Implementation Group and the leader of the Implementation Group for the National Digital Preservation System for Scientific Publications, and the primary investigator on a few other projects. He was a member of the IFLA Governing Board and Professional Committee, and is now a vice president of China Society for Library Science. He serves as one of the co-chief editors of the Journal of Data and Information Science in English and chief editor for Data Analysis and Knowledge Discovery in Chinese. Join me in welcoming Dr. Xiaolin Zhang.
And thank you for the introduction. And first, I would like to thank the University of Queensland and the Queensland University of Technology and the Griffith University for inviting me here. And also, I would like to thank all the speakers, and even including the speakers of this morning's new challenge sessions, from whom I learned a lot and whom contributed a lot of sleepless nights for me during the conference. And I realized with the time going by during the conference that I stepped into a dangerous and challenging territories. And being the last one to talk about the future of repositories after you all made these wonderful and wonderful contributions. But I think that I have a new perspective since exactly 2 years ago, I stepped down as the director of the National Science Library at the end of my 2 terms, that I moved part-time to Shanghai Tech University, a brand new university which just moved into its new campus last September. And I'm there in charge of IT infrastructure and e-learning, e-research, and e-administration, etc., and e-campus, in addition to the library. And that gave me some new perspectives that coming out of the box, the library, the repository, and look at how people, other people, with whom we do not have conferences together, the other people, how they think about us. So that gave me a new perspective to see how we are going to be useful in the future. So that's the beginning of the thinking, and that's something I want to report. But this is, I have been in this position for 2 years, and at the same time, I'm still working in the National Science Library doing digital preservation, open access, and repositories. And so I have to admit that this is a beginning learning process, that a lot of things have been quite new, challenging, interrupting to me. And whatever I present here is not what I know, but I just stumbled over, probably useful, and probably related, and probably will impact us, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure. So I would like to take this opportunity as a core exploration, especially being the last one in the conference, and after hearing so many wonderful presentations. This is not, or probably is, an excuse that if I ask me a question, I would say, no, I don't know. But I really would like us together to explore and what goes beyond the library, the repository, and even the scholarly communication. So let's begin our exploration. At the beginning, I would like to introduce you a little bit about the Chinese Academy of Sciences. It's a huge national research organization with more than 104 research institutes, and with more than 55,000 researchers and 50,000 graduate students, and now about 20,000 undergraduate students. And with all the institutions scattering around the country, and also some branch institutions in foreign countries. And also Chinese repositories, and I'm really pleased that I was one of the people pushing this. And so now the Chinese National Science Foundation has its repository for basic research. And if you have opportunity to go into there, you will be surprised. A lot of stuff there is on PDF, and from all the publishers. But because this foundation is terribly powerful with huge money, and some of the publishers just have to go along with it. But because this Chinese Science Foundation is actually sponsoring about 65% of the researchers published in Web of Knowledge. So it is the basic research repository. And also Chinese Academy of Sciences has set up repositories in almost all research institutes. And so now we have 112. And also the universities begin to have their repository development about 3 or 5 years ago, and now they have more than 40 universities which have serious repository activities. And the Ministry of Education, Science and Technology has its own tech reports sharing system, grand objective, but not terribly successful. In terms of data sharing, the Ministry of Science and Technology does have a very good program as a national scientific data sharing platform covering about 12 different areas and with a huge number of data sets. And the Chinese Academy of Sciences itself has a research data management and integrative service platform, and which coordinate and also merge together all the, not in terms of the semantics, but integrate together the data sets produced by its research institutes. And Of course, there are lots of activities in terms of e-research and in terms of e-learning, especially with China now with a good economy, huge money, and a lot of people want to move ahead and move up. So a lot of activities going there, and we don't have time to go into it. But about repositories, and I think my thinking is along those three steps. First, I want to look at the new digital ecosystems, and then to say, well, facing that, what are the kind of reorientations that some of us have been doing? And then, if we want to reorient ourselves toward the new digital ecosystems, and what we have to do with our repositories. And we all know the development. Sorry, I'm not using the open door, and I'm using this from the base. But we all know there is a steady progress of our research repositories. But the better indicators of the development, I think, is the kind of uses people are putting into it, the kind of services that build upon it. And we have been talking about some of them here, and we all know this, and that's a good sign that people are really using this, using our repositories. And this conference is a good indicator of our progress and the vitality of our repositories, and also core. And I have to say that I am, yes, still a member of it, and my institute, my library is actively participating in it, and core has been pushing for the international collaboration and for the next generation of repositories. But having said that, as core's next generation repositories document says, at this moment, most of our repositories are still collection-based, with documents or data sets as first-class objects, mostly with local applications. While we are making so many improvements and extensions, probably we should move away from this repository-based approach and to see what we can do to better respond to the new digital ecosystems. We have to reimagine new services, not in the libraries, not in the repositories, but in the research, learning, and also in the real-life society. And so we have to think, we may have to think that not from inside out, but from outside in, and to see what they, for whom we probably don't know yet, that they will lead us and lead us in whatever ways. The first challenge for me is that the changing of digital publication, digital content. Actually, the first line is, the red line is wrong, and it's all the media and all the content can be and are becoming data. And it's not a piece of just a PDF or text file. It's structured, granular, and parameterized, and semantic. It includes data, objects, relations, softwares, methods, and workflows, and process, and calculated results, and Internet of Things devices. And we are joking that in today's US, tweet is the first-class object. Yeah, you know, yeah. You have to follow tweets, otherwise you're out of the US politics. And in China, now we are thinking about the shared smart bikes, maybe the first-class object, because they are smart. They have GPS, they have your personal informations, and they can be a dissemination channels. And that can be, and will be, and are being involved, taken into the new digital ecosystems. And those media and content can be smart and will be smart. And so the information or knowledge consumption is increasingly machine-based, machine-driven, and machine-assisted. And anything, any content which is not machine processable or readable may not be information anymore. And then the semantic publishing may be the new normal. It's going to be easy, and it's going to be not from us, from the publishers, from people who are putting their user-generated content on the platform and on the network. And also the big data will be the new normal for real-life scenarios. And all the content itself becomes a knowledge as a service. It's a machine. It's a system. So that will be the new, what we call the content environment. And we all know this, the evolution of scholarly records, and also the semantic publishing enabled by all the new technologies and tools, and those tools, many of the tools can be open sourced, can be easily adopted, and all the publishers are doing this. Now, that's one of the nightmares I always have, that in 2 or 3 years, and all the publishers are putting smart journals, smart books, and smart everything, and putting up there and directly push it to the researchers. And they have been talking about this for years. In 2015, they are talking about actionability of content. In 2016, they are talking about the machine is the new reader. And I guess the second line would be the machine will be the first reader, and research science is a social machine. And in this year, they're talking about putting more trust and integrity into it. And we just learned W3C has set up a digital publishing platform. We know how internet changed everything. So when they talk about publishing from their point of view and push the change of the publishing through internet, then we are coming into a new world. And of course, all those social media and all those different Internet of Things may become a publisher, may at least become part of the publishing and communication and et cetera, the kind of universe. And adding to this is the open access movement. Of course, that I am one of the people criticized by the librarian community in China that for pushing the libraries out of existence because of this open access movement. But it's inevitable. And well, the golden open access may not be moving as fast as we would like, but probably we're waiting for some breakthrough point or turning point. But when the open access becomes a reality or gradually becoming the majority of the scholarly communication or the publishing scene, that it's not just the business as usual that we have the PDF text, etc. That everything published would be computable. And I'm involved with SCOP 3, and SCOP 3 has a repository with all the high energy physics papers in XML. And that's data mining, that enables us to data mine those articles, the several 20, it's now 12,000 strong. And so when our content, born digital and open, it means born different. It means born computable, and means born internetable, or linkable, etc. And then we have the e-science. Now, actually, when I was reading the fourth paradigm, the book about the fourth paradigm, what caught me is not just opening up all the resources. It's their stories about e-science would enable knowledge-based problem solving, knowledge-driven scientific discovery workflow management, and visualizing scientific discovery. So e-science is more about a different way of doing science, not just about the access to the science research resources. And then we have this open science movement, but open science is more than open access. You have the open science evaluation, you have open science process, you have open science tools, etc. You have open science collaboration, etc. So the open science is also include not just the access, but how we do science together. I think Sergio has better understanding of this, but I was following his colleagues' open, what you call the collaboration, and that changed the so-called the publishing behavior or publishing mechanisms. And that also makes data as a new platform. A new platform to enable not just the distribution of information, but to enable new science. And also we have this open science framework to involve all the steps in the science and in the research. And we have also the social science. Social science comes slow, but social science now comes fast in terms of to be computable. And not just for the papers, not just for the regular science data, research data, but for the economic data, psychology data, health data, etc. That will create a new environment for incorporate all the kinds of content and objects. And learning. Learning is different, and I had a problem when I went to the Shanghai Tech University, and we had this wireless capabilities set up for the classrooms. And our planning was just 2 years old, but we found that the planning is just out of date. And we thought only the teachers or a few students may use their internet devices. But then we found that the teacher will have a real-time, on-spot examination, etc. And everybody is upstreaming something in the classroom, and the class has about 200 students. So our system goes down. And I was blamed for not looking far ahead. And so that's a big problem. So we now have the connected classrooms. Going from there is so-called flipped classrooms. Students start by doing projects, by explore the kind of questions, then coming together, create their multimedia, rich media assignments, and create their digitally collaborative environments. And so that becomes a new kind of learning environment. Now, yes, we have Blackboard systems, Blackboard system, we have MOOC, but that's not enough. We are now building up multimedia, rich media laboratories for students to be able to create their content and to exchange and interact with each other and to become the new learning kind of modes or mechanisms. And so we have what we call the intelligent content, intelligent learning systems and tools, and built upon that, we will have the intelligent campus services. And this is one that is developed by the Fudan University, one of the Ivy League universities of China. And they are talking about not just all the administrative services, but the student center. A student will have his or her whole digital life put in together and then can be analyzed. Then the faculty center, that a faculty member can have his or her papers, projects, teaching classes, etc., being together. Then you have the university, the intelligence center. And this is one of the, what we call the intelligence campus computing that we are developing at this moment. And so then we have the knowledge analytics. And we are into the age of the convergence of data science, computer science, and information science. And so the data-driven knowledge discovery will become the new major activities. So we have this actually on the horizon for a long time, and many people from many fields are developing tools. This is a paper actually a few years ago about how to detect an emerging technology. It lists about 50 different methods that you can use to detect emerging technology. And we have the open source tools for data analysis, and we have open source tools for data visualization. And there are people from computer science, from management science, from electronic engineering science, from automation field, etc., that spend their huge amount of time and energy into developing those tools. So based on this, data analytics becomes new infrastructure. I will come to this, that when you have this, all the data analysis, then the results of the analysis, the methods of the analysis, etc., the tools, even like the knowledge graphs you use in the analysis, then becomes knowledge objects, becomes objects that can be used for other people. So, and then another change is, this is also by Mr. Dempsey, that the workflow is a new content. Of course, he is looking at the library, but I think that when we talk about workflow, we talk about the user's workflow, and yes, as he said, that we have to put ourselves in the life of the user, and this is also looking at the research workflow. But then the publisher is no longer a publisher, but is a workflow builder to serve the research itself and serve, let's say, the doctors and like the clinical key of elsewhere. And also, we are using the new workflow to combine all the kinds of services to develop and to deliver new platform and a new service. Even about big data, it's not just data. It's in transactions, interactions, and applications. And so if we look at the big data, and actually we used to look from left side, but now we probably should look from the right side, how people are using it, then how we integrate all the data and all the applications and all the analysis, and including the intelligent city and the big data, and from up down, not from bottom up. And we are not beginning to talk about artificial intelligence, and I am not going, this is the page. And in China, you know, we are so proud of our players of Go, and we think they are the smartest persons in the world. And now they don't want to talk about that because they are beaten by the machines, and people are building new machines to beat them again and again and again. And the machines are not just beating Go players, they're beating us. They're beating us. And then we come to a new kind of society, and most people are internet users and smart mobile users. I'm talking about people under 30s. People over 30s, well, like me, and who cares? And then we have 7.5 million undergraduate university graduates graduate every year in China. And then they come to the society. They have open access to a lot of research and development resources. They have open access to a lot of softwares and tools, and they have access to what we call the innovation incubators that governments and provide to them. And what do you think they are going to do? And they are also supported by the government in so-called public entrepreneurship and public innovation. And I think we should not think that they are lower grade innovation. They come up with some very fancy and very advanced technologies and ideas, etc. And the intensive and deep innovation outside of the elite organizations are mushrooming. And because of this internet, because of this big data, because of this open source the tools and etc. And some of them are pushed by the big companies, and they just put their algorithms up there for everybody to use, like TensorFlow. And then they will come back to us, hunt us, or disrupt us at least. Then the responses, and I think this is the familiar part of it. And we know that we have been building on top of repositories the scholarly page, not just the scholarly, the automatically building the curriculum data, but also the kind of evaluation statistics. And also we are building knowledge management platforms. This is a problem I came into, that when I was in Shanghai Tech, and one of the things I said, well, I was going to build an institutional repository. Then the president and the vice president, etc., saying, who needs repository? We need a knowledge management system that can profile us, can build knowledge map, can support discussion and virtual knowledge management of groups, virtual learning environment, virtual research environment, and reusing and republishing the data, the content from not just our own repository, but also from the third-party repositories and publishing platforms, etc. And so that is a new one, and I just got a new design last night. I didn't have time to read it, and so to say how can we support their vision. Otherwise, they are not going to finance us. Then we have this, what we call in Chinese Academy of Sciences, we have this iAuthor system, which actually is an application of ORCID, but we build upon this with connections to journal subscription systems, and to connect this to the literature retrieval systems. So we can have as a connecting hub of scholarly publications in China. And then we have people thinking about developing the big scholarly data, not just papers, but also funds, but also their grant, their research, the patents, their development projects, and their evaluations, and their collaborations. And then we have, this is by Professor Qin Jian from Syracuse, that we're not just analyzing the publications, but also analyzing the research data in more details. It's metadata, and even go beyond that. And it's not just regular metadata, but about their research methodologies, tools they use, etc. And then we have people building upon this as a working lab. Now we know the Giddy scholarly workplace, and also we heard about research space. Of course, research space is more than that, but one of the as I understand, is to support a lot of functions. And then we have this whole tail system that supports the collaboration and the management of research workflow. And of course, this morning, we heard about open science framework. And toward working now, there comes the publishers. And they are building really very elaborate and rich and quite advanced knowledge platform, and to turn the papers into objects, into knowledge networks, and into knowledge services to answer questions by researchers and by research managers, etc. And also this is actually what we call the World Data Center of Microorganisms by one of the Chinese Academy's Research Institute. And down there, you see the publications, but it's just part of it. They have the patents, they have the genome, they have the sequence, they have the strains, etc. And also, they are using this for research analysis and to support research projects. Then we have CERN, and CERN has its open data services and also about its analysis preservation systems. And this is a project by one of my students and about the National Science Foundation's funding link data. And it's not just for finding the journal, the articles, but for analyzing who is collaborating with whom. For example, one of the real uses that can be put into is to find who should not be the reviewers of your grants. And so whom you have been working with, and who is your graduate advisors, and who has been together in the projects, etc. And so they are using this system with a huge number of data to analyze. And this is a system they are building. And then another example is what the National Science Library has been doing. Now, we are building what we call the Strategic Research and Development Analysis and Decision Support System. We have the research tracking, we have the trend analysis, and we have the informatics and informatics analysis, and the research evaluation, etc. And we are putting them together as what you call a scoreboard. And so this is not for regular research scientists. It's for the directors and for the presidents of the Chinese Academy of Sciences. But that's still in the so-called scholarly communication. Then we come this guy from Dalian Institute of Technology of China, and he has been using, yes, publications, but also the people's notes and blogs in their health forums, and the data from data about the doctor's registration, about the registration of hospitals, and the registries of companies, of the pharmaceutical companies, etc. Then to put them together and to say, okay, what we can discover about the diseases, about the cures, about the abnormality of administrating the medicines, etc. And here, one of the things is to merge together all the different, not just different metadata, but different classifications and different ways of looking at things. And of course, there we have this healthcare, the new trend of digital healthcare that is coming up and is developing very, very fast. And there we need the facts and the knowledge from the literature, but also we need the facts and the trends and analysis from variables and from other Internet of Things devices. And again, we have the intelligent cities. Intelligent cities actually is also, you have the data, and you have the data to be linked, and you have the cross-modality analysis, you have the deep learning and the search. Then you want to answer different questions. This is an example by Mr. Xin about the big data and about the actually smart transportation. That you have the data underneath, and then you have the geospatial and temporal and the interactive analysis, and then to answer questions that real-time questions and decision-making, etc. Those are just part of it. Then all this present something that challenging to us and disruptive to us. So how should we react? Of course, we are reacting, and one of the wonderful job is by the core next generation repositories. I'm not going to say more, and I encourage you to read the presentation by Leo and his colleagues. And then we have this wonderful research graph that build the bridge between different research repositories and research resources. And we have the Skolniks, and also the research data and the publication bridge. And we have, of course, open science as a service from OpenAIRE. But how about outside of the scholarly communication environment? And here we come again with the intelligent cities. You have the underneath, their tasks are not terribly different from us. You have the integrative organization of big data. Then you have the integrative analysis of the big data. And then you have the innovative use of big data. That data, of course, primarily is the data that taken from sensors and devices. But are we going to say that scholarly communication is not relevant here? And the researchers and the research results cannot be taken into this and play an important role here. We can and we must. And also we have the learning analytics. One of the things that we are trying to do is in Shanghai Tech or in some other Chinese universities is to combine all the resources, not just the course registration and the grades and also the interactions on blackboards, on MOOC systems, etc., and also the various kinds of analysis that out of the research to say, okay, if our reading of our students' behaviors really means something, or can we explain it by some established research? So that also challenges us. And of course, for the research itself, we're going beyond just supporting the individual research process, but also about the strategic analysis, and about the talent selection, and about analysis of research to development transfer. That's a big problem to our research organizations that we produce about, this is not for quote and this is not for tweet, and we produce about 4,000 patents every year, and we sell about less than 10. And what's the problem? Yeah. Then there is analysis about the transfer or interaction between research and development and society. And the Canton Academy of Sciences now is tasked to analyze the economic development and the social situation, then come back to say what we should do in terms of research, or at least applied research, to support the economy. Otherwise, why should the local government give you money? I was there 2 years ago. I found terribly difficult, so I escaped. To solve this problem, if we really want to use the word solve, of course we have the interoperability issue, and CORE has been doing a good wonderful job. And also in the data side, and we have the 5-star principles by Sir Berners-Lee, and we have the FAIR principles for open data, and then we have the W3C data on the web-based practices. And it gives you all the aspects of putting data and to be reusable on the web, and then give you explanations about how you should be doing this in terms of metadata, in terms of license, in terms of APIs, in terms of workflow management, etc. And I think that goes a little bit beyond what we have been doing. But interoperability is just a part of it. How about the tools, added services that we need to interact with researchers, with learning, with health, and with intelligent cities? The services that we need to identify, select, calculating, and etc. The services that we need to transfer the content into data, into computable data, into that something that can be active and playable by people from other workflows and from other worlds. And of course, this has been, there has been fast growth and fast expansions, and from a lot of stakeholders and partners and competitors, and of course from publishers, etc. And almost all the functionalities have been covered. And it will be interesting to really do a survey of all these things that can be used now or in a very near future. And of course, not all of them can be working together, but that has been kind of attacked. That would be, well, I would say that some of the problems will be solved because the market, the competitive market is there, and because of such a huge innovation resources out there. And one of the things challenging us is how to turn our content into computable data and useful data. Now, of course, we have this Elseworlds fingerprinting techniques and efforts, and also we have this from our library about this actually is an example to turn our PDF dissertations or PPT, PowerPoint presentations into actionable data. And we came out of this because we don't want to be cheated by the students and to have a PPT and that's all. We want to see the system, the program, the data, and their interviews. And they can put together and as a rich file, and they can parameterized, and so each of individual objects can be searched, linked, and computed. And then we can have this structures recognition, and we can find out their research design, research methods, and of course topic networks, topic evolutions, etc., by automatic tools. And this is one of the things that National Science Library is doing, and is taking the web pages from specific websites and extract the data objects and calculate the indicators, and by using a knowledge graph. Well, we still call it a research graph, but it's about research process and research organization, and then turn into the maps and figures, etc., to tell the story of the research. And this actually, sorry for you can't see the links. This is a doctoral student who did an analysis about the evolution of science policies by using the automatic extraction, analysis, etc., to tell the story. And in the early times, we need an expert to spend about 2 months to do this. Now she can do it in about, let's say, half hour. And not exactly at this moment as good as the expert, but we are very confident that in 2 months' time, or no more than 1 year's time, that the system can be doing pretty much the usable analysis. And we still say that you have to have experts, but I become more and more not terribly confident about that statement. And as my library runs also a graduate student program, or we are part of the Graduate University of Chinese Academy of Sciences, that we are running the information science project. Those are the topics that some of our students are doing, and the cytometric tools, social network analysis, and information extraction, and content clustering and knowledge mapping, and automatic thesaurus and knowledge graph developing, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And we find out that the problem is that for the students to select a topic becomes more and more difficult because there are already open source software out there. And after you work on this for 1 year, and you still have 2 years to go for your graduation, then you find somebody already did it and put their tools as open source on the web. Of course, you have to prove that you did this before they put up there, but that's the kind of environment. And the tools, the calculations, the results are all become first-class objects to be reused and to be put into the workflows of information analysis or research process. And then another challenge is about knowledge graph. And I know there are people knowing much more than I do about this, so I will go very fast. I start from Berners-Lee, and there are many, many explanations about this, and there are many aspects or slips of knowledge graphs, and they are putting into different systems to support semantic search and organizing and processing of content and real-life tasks. And I will just go very fast about this. And then some of the tools, some of the softwares, and some of the services provided by companies are very strong and used by many big institutes, like the Annotex, like our research space, open linked data and semantic processing, and like Springer Nature Science Graph. And they are also using their system to turn all their papers into a semantic network of knowledge. And one of the problems we are facing here is that we have too many vocabularies. Of course, I'm not even going to the linked open data side to give you this huge network of different kind of vocabularies. And all those kind of things that some of them come very strong, used by many, many people. But the problem is, or we have some very common ones, schema.org, and Keynote, well, I don't know how to say this in a good word, in the Keynote, and Freebase, and also SIO, and many others. And you even have the graph databases that the list of graph databases listed there. And those are primarily what we call the general ones. But still we have the very specific ones, like this neural ontology, like this finance and economic ontologies, and like for the Internet of Things, from 1M to M, that they are developing their ontologic kind of systems to support the linking and processing of Internet of Things. And then when we come together into their workflows and their life, then we have the problem of how we can match or merge or integrate all those kind of different views of the words. So there are JDL model of information fusion from the very beginning at the data level to the higher up level of knowledge systems. And then there are people talking about ontology integration. And then we have already the ontology mapping and alignment tools. Some of them are still going on today, and some of them are dead. But that's something people are seriously considering. And also we have the cross-language linking of knowledge graphs. This is a research by a professor in Tsinghua University about the Chinese and English language Wikipedias. How can we link their knowledge graphs and their smart data, etc. And here, when we talk about putting our data or scholarly data, scholarly content into the real life problem-solving process, that we need to turn our data into a very kind of more granular and parameterized way to make it geospatial and temporal identifiable, to make it event identifiable, to make it identifiable by actions, actors, methods, and workflows, identify all the kinds of identifiers and constraints and decision drivers and causes and impacts, etc. Because they are looking things at quite differently from us. I had a reading of this W3C semantic sensor network ontology. Of course, because of my lack of knowledge, I found it's quite different in the way of looking at their process from what we are looking at our process. And is that a problem for us? And if it is, and how we are going to align ourselves to them, or how we are going to, what you call, harmonize this whole situation. This is the final words, or of course not the final words, it's not end of the word. Well, first, are these real life scenarios relevant to us, to repositories? Well, at the beginning I tend to think, no, well, we are doing our stuff. But then I think, if it's not, that would be our problems. That would be a serious problem. And so some of the institutions are beginning to do this. My library is now working with Huawei company, which is the biggest telecommunication company in China, and to work with their the production and the systems to kind of semantically supporting it. And also working with Baidu, which is the Chinese Google, and then working with, someone is reminding me, and this is the last one, and to work with the Science Press about their semantic publishing. Of course, the library wanted to do it itself, and I was suggesting strongly against them, but we have to collaborate with them. And the National Agricultural Science of China, and is now doing with agricultural informatics and intelligent agriculture. There is a trend that people who are involved with agricultural informatics become a more, what do you call, people become the staff members with the higher standards, and the people doing digital library and repositories are left out. And also we have the National Medical Science Library with precision medicine and intelligence health. So some of us have been doing there. And then another question, are those, what we are doing now will smooth us into those scenarios? Well, not necessarily. And we are not really seriously, intensively talking with people outside. That's a problem. And we're actors in those situations, scenarios, will wait for us or actively involve us into their tasks? Well, not necessarily. I was in a conference and some of the publishers are talking about they're serving researchers. They're serving research institutes. Then some of us from the library side saying, okay, what about the library? The publisher was so polite, saying, okay, well, we may work together, we may not. And so are we out of the game? Or when are we going to be out of the game? And so that what we did is from an inside-out thinking to an outside-in thinking, and into the life of users to be integrated, embedded, and interactive. So we need new partners and new ways of collaborations. And all those are the kind of beginning thinking when I was run into being ignored when I pushed the repositories. And actually those questions were there when I was the director of the library, but at that time I was too proud to admit it's a problem. And now I kind of think that it's time for us to think and for us to act before it is a little bit too late. And thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dr. Xiaolin Zhang, for shaking us up a bit. That's good. Please stay. We do have, oh, somebody sorted out the mics, thanks. We do have time for a couple of questions. And I think there is a mic. Yes, there's a mic roaming. Question? Already brave enough for a question? Okay, I think it just shows how much we all need to think about what you've just told us, to be quite honest. Thank you very much. Join me again in thanking Dr. Xiaolin Zhang. I'm now going to hand you over to Sam and Heather for the prize giving for the Ideas Challenge.
Thank you, Andrea. Could I please ask the members of all the teams that were involved in this morning's challenge to come up to the stage? Just while we're talking, thank you. So that was everyone from every team. So we did a bit of number crunching over the lunch break of 17 scores from our illustrious panel of judges and their very scientific scoring process. The scoring from the judges was pretty consistent, and it was actually a very, very close call. Everyone did very, very well. So I might just get one last round of applause just for everyone that participated in the challenge. So the 2017 Ideas Challenge is one of those situations where every child does get a prize. So we have 3 teams that were not at the top of the table, but we'd like to ask them to come forward to take home a goodie bag of things from Griffith, QUT and UQ. So we hope you'll take those back and enjoy them. So could we ask Team Kim, Simple, and the Handshake team to step forward to get your goodie bags. Give them a round of applause, everyone. So our next one is for a team that... Sorry, still going?
Yes.
So we did want to make it... Oh, no. We've got Heath. He's only from the major sponsor. So we did want to make a special mention of a team that didn't make it into the top 3, but were clearly the winners of the Audience Reaction Prize. So we'd like to mention especially the Be Done OK for their call to action about stopping wasting time doing keywords for our metadata creation. So thank you. So we're into the top 3 now. So in our third runner-up team, we're interested in making it easier for researchers to self-identify the best practice for packaging objects for repositories. They also want to make Cameron Nayland a little bit happier, and I think we all want that. So wowing the judges with the novelty of their tech choice and getting good points for feasibility as well. Data Pickle. Well done, guys. So in second place, we had a team that were interested in reducing workloads for researchers and repository staff by applying innovative artificial intelligence techniques. They scored highly on audience reaction and on the innovative use of technology, slightly lower on feasibility at this point, but put your hands together anyway for global connections. And in first place, we've got a team that perhaps bamboozled the audience a little with the acronyms to start with, but in the end they came through strongly with some pretty readily available tech and common standards already out there in the world that we might be able to use outside of our repositories, but related to our repositories to solve some common real-world problems. So put your hands together for the Slice and Dice team. Once again, just want to thank everyone for participating in the Ideas Challenge this morning. It's really as much about the audience as it is about all the hard work that the team's put in. So once again, thank you very much, everyone.
Okay, now it's time for the best poster, or should I say the most popular poster prizes. Now, we had 47 excellent posters. It would be lovely if we had a prize for all of them. And so I would like to thank all of the poster authors personally as a track chair for getting me your posters in the right format so they all displayed brilliantly. Okay, so without further ado, the runner-ups are Andrea Schwier and Jenny Barr, Deirdre and Megan for the poster 243, Enabling Collaborative Review with DSpace Configurable Workflow. Sorry, thank you. The next runner-up was poster 304, Robin Hall, with Exposing Undergraduate Research in Institutional Repositories. Robin? Anyone? And the third runner-up for poster 176, Andrew Williams, Simon Huggard, and Eva Fish, for opening up data to realise lofty research ambitions. So finally, drum roll, we have the winner. And the winner is... Hang on. Oh, well, we got it. Aha, here it is. The poster 260, Keeping an Institutional Repository Relevant. Tove Lembergert, Claire Mead, Stephanie Morton, Anna Gibbons, and Catherine Ferguson from James Cook University. Thank you. Well done. Thanks, everyone. There we go. Whoops. Sorry.
Hi, everyone. I'm David Miner from the University of California, San Diego, and I'm just going to interrupt here for 30 seconds with a brief kind of Kanye moment from the steering committee. So most people may or may not be aware that there is an Open Repository Steering Committee. At the beginning of the conference, one of the opening speakers mentioned that in addition to all of you attending, there are many people who do posters and presentations, and behind the scenes, there's a whole ton of people who work really hard to make this event happen. We've mentioned the local organizers who have put on all the wonderful things. There's the program committee that puts together all of the program and all the presentations and posters. But there is the steering committee, and we are a permanent standing committee that persists beyond and across and between all of the Open Repository individual events, handle things like planning between them. We work on the code of conduct, logistics, budgets, all those kinds of things. And I'm just here to do two things. One is to embarrass someone, and that person is William Nixon, who hopefully is still here. William? Yeah, come here. William has served for the last 2 years as chair of the steering committee, and this involves a ton of work, not just organizing our monthly meetings, our Slack channel, a ton of emails. Also means waking people up in the middle of the night to attend these meetings because they're in basically every continent on the planet. William is cycling off as chair, and we deeply and dearly appreciate all of the work he has done, and I don't think the people in this room realize how much effort he has put into this. Thank you, William.
Thank you very much, David and colleagues. That's wholly unexpected, and I have to say it's such a privilege to be able to work with the great members of the steering committee and to take things forward. And yeah, it's great to do that. Thank you very much. Yeah.
I think I forgot to mention he's from the library at the University of Glasgow. He's Scottish. I didn't pick that up. And also wanted to just note, coming in, it's not that we now have no chair. We do actually have a new chair, Ellen Stangland, who has been vice chair for the last couple of years. So welcome very much, Ellen. And Sarah Shreves, who will be stepping in as vice chair, deputy chair, something like that, vice chair. So thank you. So if you do have any questions, I know it's the end of the day. There is also, I believe, linked on most of our sites, you can get to the steering committee if you have questions or comments or anything you really want us to know about this event as we move into the next wonderful event in Montana. So thank you.
Okay, we're getting towards the end. It's now my great pleasure to get to hand on the baton to Layla Sturman from Montana State University in the lovely Bozeman, Montana. That's where the next OR will be. So Layla, would you like to come up? It's in fact not a baton, it's a platypus that I'm handing over. You might wonder why a platypus. When the first platypus turned up in the UK, of course not alive, in the 18th century, the scientists believed it was a hoax. It had a duck bill, a beaver tail, and lo and behold, it lays eggs and it suckles its young. So they believed definitely that somebody had fabricated this animal. One of my clever staff said it's a bit like a repository, really. It's got all these odd bits stuck together, but it works. So this is to keep you company on your journey, to remind you of OR 17 and to wish you all the best with OR 18.
Thank you. Okay, so we don't have any platypuses in Bozeman, Montana, except for, I guess we'll have one soon, but we do have, our animals tend to be a little larger. So, you know, something less cuddly. So I'll make this short. So next year on the 4th to the 7th, that's a Monday through a Thursday of June, Open Repositories will be in Bozeman, Montana. Where's Bozeman? Nope. Oh, there it is, in North America. I don't know if there's an arrow pointing to Montana. We're one of those big square states, right in the Northern Rockies, and nope. So Bozeman is a small state where there are 1 million people, just over 1 million people in the whole state. So that's about one person for every 600 miles. We're a little more concentrated than that, but it's a different place, I think, than Open Repositories has been, at least for the past few years. So it'll be an exciting change of pace. The conference will be on the campus of Montana State University, which is a beautiful campus in the Gallatin Valley, surrounded by the Rocky Mountains. It may snow in June, but you know, not much. We're a high, dry climate, and it really is very beautiful. We're also just about an hour from Yellowstone National Park and about 4 hours from Glacier National Park, which are two really awesome parks that I would recommend you visit. So we'll keep this pretty short. If you would like more information, here are 6 ways to find it. And I look forward to seeing you all there next year, and any questions, comments, hopes you have, let me know. Any of these ways. Yeah.
Okay, so all that remains now is to say goodbye and to thank you. It's been an amazing week, filled with a lot of activity. I think if you're like me, I'm looking forward to the weekend and having a rest. But these events are only good because of people, and so it would not be appropriate for us to leave without thanking a few. I'd certainly like to thank again our sponsors and exhibitors, because they've made this a richer event by their presence and by their contributions. And also my fellow host steering committee members who've done a great job over a 12-month period. So I'd just like to thank a few of them in particular. Sue Hutley from QUT, who was my co-chair. We had a deal that she would take over after me, and then I would pick back up if she wasn't able to continue, and I've had the pleasure of doing so. Bob Jarrity from UQ, who led our vendor experience committee and excelled himself at generating revenue for the conference. Louise Howard from Griffith, who led the delegate experience, and Louise was very relieved we didn't run out of food last night, because that was what was keeping her awake at night. Sarah Brown from UQ, who did a fantastic job on the workshops, and I hear by all accounts they were a great success. Paula Callan, for the digital posters, which I think went down a treat. And I hear that Montana's planning to build a cube in time for next year. Also, the very hard-working program co-chairs. I never realised how much work was involved, and I got off lightly. So Ellen Stangerland and Andrea Schweer just did so much work, so thank you both very much. It was very great for me as a newbie. I'd also like to thank my wonderful Griffith staff who've been running around behind the scenes doing the paddling to make sure it all worked. You know who you are. I'll say thank you later. And of course, the lovely Lauren Kerr, who's events manager at QUT conferences. She and her team have done a great job to keep us on track. She's great at staying calm, what you want in an events manager, and just making it all happen. And finally, can I thank you? Without you, this wouldn't have been the event that it was. The level of engagement and enthusiasm and energy has remained throughout the whole time, even this afternoon. And that's really wonderful to see. So thank you all very much. And for those of you that are travelling on to Noosa or Port Douglas or cruising the Whitsundays or whatever you might be doing, do enjoy yourselves. For those of you that unfortunately have to travel home straight away, safe travels, but we do hope to see you back, and we'd always be very keen to welcome you, so do get in touch if you're coming our way. Thank you all very much.